I knew this program existed in the community that allowed nonprofit leaders this kind of, money and opportunity to focus on development. And quite honestly, Bob Pulo and his associated name meant very little to me. Like, I knew who he was, we had met, I knew his association with the building that Family First Health now occupies. But outside of that, I didn't have a close relationship or understanding of his personal passion for building nonprofit leadership. And I'll say that in that 12 months of participating in the Fellows Program, that was one of my biggest takeaways, that there are people that exist that have had very different lives and very different experiences, but for whatever reason, and Bob would say it was a lot of influence of his mentor, but I think that he brings his own personal passion to it. But there are people that are committed to the community being stronger and recognize that not just nonprofit organizations, but it's the people that really have the vision, the expertise, and the content knowledge, and then the ability to pull it off, to do something that's going to make our community a better place for everybody. In 2010, when I was able to participate, I had a great year of doing cool stuff. I got to go to Guatemala and go to Spanish language school, and I got to go to a course at Harvard School of Public Health that was at that time on kind of healthcare reform in the United States. And, both experiences in very different ways built both my knowledge and so then my confidence to do my job better, to become engaged more broadly than what I had been in our local community and beyond. All of those things really challenged me personally and allowed for personal growth and development. And so, you finish that year, and while I'm sharing my experience, I've heard this same thing echoed by many of the other fellows. You kind of automatically transition to the what's next. What should I do with this? What you have your personal to-do list of how do you incorporate those things that you've learned in your everyday work. How do those experiences maybe inspire you to kind of the what's next for you? That's something that I think happens with a lot of people. But then there's also this nagging kind of what's next for this group of people that I had looked at before being selected to be a fellow as, wow, those are all really great nonprofit leaders. And then to have just seen that community grow. And then to hear Bob consistently ask the question to us, what more can you do? As he saw the group grow, how do you make broader impact? And what do you need to do that? And so the opportunity for me to chair the advisory committee was the first time where I really got to pause and think about that seriously, the what's next, what could we do, how could we have greater impact? And that closely aligned, interestingly, with this exploration of Give Days and, trying to understand where philanthropy and support of nonprofit work was going. I was really intrigued by the phenomenon of Give Days and how might that look locally. And we were seeing certainly what was happening in Lancaster, but also knew that there was a certain set of circumstances that surrounded that effort. And we learned early on that those same circumstances weren't going to be able to be replicated in York. And, as I sit here today, only a couple weeks away from our first Give Day, I think that was just as it was meant to be. I think that what has been able to be created is uniquely York, has been driven by the nonprofit community and what that community needs in all of its different shapes and sizes and missions. And while there'll be lots of learnings, I think that we are going to pull off a great day. And even the byproducts of coming up to that day of collaboration, communication, people building their skills, those are all things that are just invaluable, that are coming off of this effort as well. As I think about how we got to where we are, ready to launch Give Local York, and all the efforts over the last 9 months to bring the community together around this event. I really see evidence of the work of learning and exploring and really coming up with lots of alternatives against every obstacle. And that was work that was taken on by the York Federal Fellows, particularly the advisory committee, but many other of the Fellows alumni group, weighing in, adding their thoughts, adding their experiences, that was really instrumental in getting us to the point of saying, we can do an event, here's the core things that we need. And most important to me is that we didn't have to have it all figured out, that I was working with a group of people who, with me worked the idea far enough to be able to articulate it, but were willing to kind of take that leap and say, it's the right thing, it's moving in the right direction, and we have enough figured out to really make an educated leap into this new area. Give Local York for me is certainly there are elements of a personal passion. And interestingly, that passion isn't necessarily about raising money or some of the key things that people would think about a day like Give Local York, but it was about innovating, providing new opportunities and ideas, and also really just broadening the playing field, both of nonprofits that felt like they could connect to donors and be connected to one another potentially, and the donors themselves, the community segments of the community that may or may not have felt like they had a way in to financially supporting the good work that was happening in their community. York is an incredibly giving community. In the 14 years that I've lived here, I've been blown away by the philanthropy and personal support of good works that happen. I also know we're a county of over 400,000, and the ability to connect and contribute helps all of us feel connected to our community in a different way. And so to broaden the opportunities for people to participate, to contribute, to show their support, and do that in a way that was innovative and maybe a bit disruptive, is always attractive to me. And kind of anything that I'm doing, I'm looking for how might we do it a little bit differently, and always with an eye towards how could we include more people as we do it differently. And so that, for me personally, were some of the key ingredients that came together to engage me in Give Local York, and thinking about how it could work, how it could play out, and then getting some really great people engaged in the same vision so that we could make it happen.